All right. Announcement went out. Discord knows we're live at least. Let's do this thing. I like this color on me. That's good. Nice. Okay. So, right before I hopped on stream, I was looking at our first YouTube comments on the 3-hour gender debate. And good news, we already have somebody accusing us of bringing up fake people to make bad arguments. Oh, that's funny. What's going on, evil alien robot? I'm Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're doing all the time. Even when we get insanely frustrated, like we did last night, when I actually yelled at a person. Which is so amusing to me. Like, the amount it takes to get me that frustrated. And to think that somebody got that out of me. It's very funny. It's very funny. I did have one comment on the YouTube video that I wanted to respond to further. And so we can do that on stream real quick. Evil Alien Robot, what do you got going on this evening? And then I think the thing I want to do is I want to get live Twitch chat feed on my stream, and so I need to get that set up because I don't want to not have that anymore. Playing some Fallout New Vegas, hell yeah! Get you some rad roaches. What am I doing here? That's not it. There it is. Right, this is the one I want to work on. I didn't realize that he had this much longer response. So I actually need to read through it. Oh god, there's so much text that I can't even fit it on here at a reasonable size. That will do, that will do. Okay. Okay, so there was a whole conversation going on over here. This debate is so infuriating. Tim tries to show the contradictions of the gender concept, and the host just doesn't see it. I wanted to shout, "Yes, Tim, I know what you mean. Don't let him off the hook." The host admitted that all people that are of a specific gender have one thing in common. They identify as such. That admission is the salient point. It makes self-identification the only valid criterion. Tim tried to show that by asking him how he would define a masculine woman who identifies as such, because it makes all the cultural stereotyping obsolete. If a masculine woman can just be a woman, then it doesn't matter what kind of arbitrary characteristics a specific culture ascribes to a woman. If self-identification is the decisive factor, then it becomes totally arbitrary, rendering his whole elaborate concept obsolete, because it simply doesn't matter what you or your culture thinks. Let's say I am a biological male who checks all the cultural male criterion in his box, and I say, I identify as a woman, then according to his definition, I am a woman. What? I'm a biological male who checks all the cultural criterion in his box. Whose box? My box? According to his definition, I am a woman. Yes, that is correct, because my criterion don't matter. We already have a masculine construct for women and girls that nobody has ever argued or gotten upset about. Yeah, right. But, I mean, this guy's agreeing with Tim, and Tim was saying that there are two two layers of things. There is sex, and then there's masculinity and femininity. So this guy's agreeing with that. It's a bit old-fashioned, but we still all understand the concept, and is usually socially acceptable for girls and women to not follow more feminine elements. Right. But we have to split it into a third category. I'm sure the host wouldn't dispute that. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, you called me out on that one, because I definitely did, I agreed with that. So in contrast to this tautological, a woman is whoever says that she is a woman, a sensible way to define a woman is biological sex, because it is based on an objective criterion. Instead of showing that gender exists, the host shows that the whole concept is a phantasma, something that vanishes like other imaginary concepts like witchcraft if you examine it. I think I figured out how I'm going to respond to this. I think I have. Then another person replies, the problem with your interpretation is that it insists on making this a debate solely about identity rather than linguistics and societal roles. It is merging the idea of gender and sex, which is unhelpful for providing clarity and developing a more rigorous taxonomy for human experience. That's the point of social constructs? What, being a phantasma? Yeah. If we all just stopped thinking that money had value, money would just go away. All we would have left is paper. The host admitted that all people that are of a specific gender have one thing in common: they identify as such. That admission is the salient point. It makes self-identification the only valid criterion. But self-identification is not the only valid criterion, even if the host believes so, which I don't. Arguably, it is one of the many criteria that should not be ignored if your desire is to understand how that person regards their role in society. There is simply a lack of vocabulary to accurately describe how we relate to trans people and how they feel they relate to society. It does not mean they are wrong for identifying their perceived role in society. There is a lack of vocabulary for us to properly define that role. Even Tim's example of a masculine woman is a shortcoming of our language to accurately describe what we see as a contradiction in someone else's perceived identity. There are antiquated terms such as women's work, which are an effort to generalize the role of people in a community. But these concepts are laid barren when you observe that there are societies with matrilineal heritage or egalitarian distribution of responsibilities. These roles are largely influenced by the needs of their society and the general capabilities of their citizens. There may be people who are intellectually dishonest and regard sex and gender as synonyms, but it's an issue of language, not science. Our communication as a species is not yet developed enough to make a cogent distinction between sex and gender, which is why people get confused and believe these concepts are interchangeable. It is dangerous to only speak in generalities if you are trying to be thorough in understanding and defining gender and sex. It leaves no room for intersex people or others with abnormal situations, should use atypical there, whose mere existence exposes the limitations of language. Maddie, I didn't ask how you're doing tonight. I don't think. I thought it a second ago, and then I came back to read what you read, and I meant to say it, and then I don't think I said it. How are you doing this evening? It leaves no room for... Oh, yeah. Instead of showing that gender exists, the host shows that the whole concept is a phantasma, something that vanishes like other imaginary concepts, like witchcraft if you examine it. This just doesn't hold up, as you are attempting to assert objectivity in a realm of subjective experience. There are already scientific definitions for the sex of male and female, but as mentioned earlier, this is a matter of language and societal roles, and any honest conversation about this topic makes an effort to distinguish sex from gender. There is no objective, scientifically quantifiable form of justice or happiness, yet we exist in mutual agreement that the world could operate under the assumption that these concepts exist and have real-world implications. You wouldn't call these phantasma, but you will struggle to find a universal cohesive definition of what constitutes justice or happiness. The argument does not hold weight. Okay, now the comment that I want to further respond to that I haven't read yet. Thank you for your enlightening answer. I really appreciate it. You criticized some of my points, which were specifically in answer to what the host said. You say that self-identification is not the only criterion by which gender is ultimately defined. So I'm interested in your opinion. Under which circumstances would you doubt the self-identification of a person? The gender debate is exhausting and stupid, and I don't think there's a way to unbrainwash these people about it. there's not a way to unbrainwash everyone about it. But even my MAGA coworker now understands the difference between gender and sex. And while she hasn't moved away from preferring sex to gender as a way of defining a person, like in third person, at least now she will vocalize, like, I get it, I get why they're upset, and I get why, like, it is like a painful experience for them to be treated this way. And that tells me that she is still even considering that first issue of whether, like, which one she thinks she should call people, because she's willing to vocalize that she thinks it is harmful. So there are ways of budging people. We do all the time, because I value her as representative of what people in her position think about and how they view issues and where there are gaps in their knowledge. And so I'm able to test things with her, and she appreciates it because, A, I inform her on some things that she feels like she was uninformed on, which she finds helpful. And B, I think she gets like a kind of peace out of it, because people in her position, MAGA people, are honestly tired of being, as, like, from their perspective, bullied all the time. And she gets a sense of ease being able to talk about her position without feeling like I'm going to attack her for it. Now, I have great distaste for what her feelings are, and I will let her know that. But I will let her know that in the same way that I would let a friend know that. I'd be like, hey, I'm not trying to upset you, but I need you to know that the thing you're doing is not okay. I would say that to a friend, and I would try to help them see things from a less harmful perspective. A MAGA person's never going to feel safe in budging their position if they feel like they're at war all the time. And I'm not telling people not to go to war, I'm just saying I like to provide that alternative. Okay. Under which circumstances would you doubt the self-identification of a person? What would be necessary for you to say to somebody, even though you claim you are a woman, for me you are a man? That's not possible. If you would under no circumstances ever contradict the self-identified gender of a person, my point still stands. I tried to show that the concept of gender that the host is using was vanishing into thin air because it only relayed on a tautology. This is a valid argument even though it might not apply with other definitions of gender. Furthermore, you are using a cheap cop-out to evade an argument, saying that there are no words how we relate to trans people. Then how can you know if your ideas in relation to them are valid? I suspect the lack of words and your linguistics problems are a strong indicator for the fact that your concept or definition lacks clarity and coherence. Furthermore, I am not confused about the distinction between sex and gender, and the existence of intersex persons poses no challenge to my definition at all. You might not agree with my definition, but that doesn't make me confused. And of course, I would not call justice a phantasma because it has a coherent concept with a clear definition. Okay. That's nonsense, dude. And it plays an important role in our legal system and explains an important concept in society. The problem with witchcraft and other baseless speculations that they cannot show to have coherent definitions and no function in reality, or, like in the case of the host gender definition, it was a tautology, which means it has no meaning and doesn't explain anything. And I don't think that the existence of trans persons shows limitations of linguistics in any way. Maybe you could give me an example for clarification. Okay, let's address this. I'm going to try and... What is even going on? I'm responding to the first of... like, we got like 140 views on the 3-hour gender debate from last night. And so I'm trying to engage with the comments. And this presented enough of... oh, you just mean like what even is he arguing? I am going to try to boil down his points to something cohesive here. Had another gender debate last night. I did have another gender debate last night. I don't know if it would even count as a debate. It was... Yeah, oh boy, did I. I actually yelled at a person. What a coward. What a coward. Did I actually wake you up, Maddie? Was it me that woke you up? It was just that, like... It's... I'm gonna give myself a little bit of an out here. And that's, I think I made, like, based on his comments after stream, I think I really got in his fucking head. The fact that I pointed out to him how cowardly he had been about his willingness to say what he believed in, and he wanted to come back and be like, I had some shower thoughts, some literal shower thoughts that I wanted to share about our debate. I got in his head. What happened, Evil Alien Robot, was we got down to the point of, like, him not contesting what the concept of gender is. But he's like, why the fuck should I call somebody something based on that? I want to call somebody based on their sex. And I walked him through this whole hypothetical where I was like, you're looking at a person with, like, who is totally jacked with a bunch of body hair and a mustache and, like, a chiseled jaw. And they're wearing a dress and their name is Natalie. They introduce themselves as Natalie. What do you call that person? He's like, I don't. I was like, okay, well, fine. Somebody else is going to talk about Natalie in third person and engage you in third person. And they're saying, oh, no, she's a woman. She, her. And I even put it to him, I'm like, fine, this person is worried about what a piece of shit you are, and they're going to tell you, no, dude, Natalie is a cis woman. Please call her by her pronouns. And he was like, I wouldn't. And he eventually got back around to, okay, like, I would if I was forced to, but I would change my patterns of speech so that I didn't have to. If I didn't have to refer to her by this person by pronouns, I wouldn't do it. And I'm like, so you're just really concerned about Natalie's genitals. That's all you care about. You're thinking about Natalie's genitals this whole time. I mean, I put it more fairly. I was like, you're thinking about Natalie's genitals and gonads and her karyotype and her hormones. Things you will never know about Natalie. Dude, that's weird. I'm just here to tell you that's a weird thing to think about. Just a random person. And he insisted that that was wrong. He's like, no, I don't, your framing is dishonest. You're framing this dishonestly. You're putting words in my mouth. Right, yeah. The frickin' name thing was wild. But so at that point he was like, well, like, but if fine, I would call her she, her. I would do that. But if I learned that they were biologically a man, then I would call them he, him. And we went back and forth in this, and back and forth. And I kept going, okay, so what you care about is their hormones, genitals, gonads, and karyotyping. He's like, no, you're still being dishonest, and you're reframing. You're framing it wrong. And I just eventually gave up. I gave up, and I was like, okay, look, our two options are this. Call them by their preferred pronouns, which has all of these benefits. Now, I'm not going to try to rephrase for you anymore. You fill in the blanks for me about what is the benefit of what you want to do. He goes, I get to talk normal. I'm like, okay, you get to talk normal. And by normal, you mean just the way you're used to, but okay. And he goes, and then I know that it would be correct. I'm like, okay, what do you mean correct? He goes, well, I can tell a person's a man. I'm like, how? How, No Auto? How can you tell that the person's a man? He goes, well, just by looking at them, like their Adam's apple or whatever. I'm like, can a woman not have an Adam's apple? can a female person not have an Adam's apple? He goes, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess they don't have to. I'm like, okay, so like what aspects are correct? He's like, the sexual ones. I'm like, these are the criteria for sex. These 4 things, these 5 things. And he was like, well, okay. I'm like, great. So when I phrased it as you being concerned with their genitals, hormones, gonads, and karyotyping, I was right. He's like, no, you're just framing it wrong. I'm like, no, these are your words, dude. I put this back up here for you. This is what you wanted. I am not framing it wrong. I am stating facts. And so by the time he admitted that that was what he was basing his decision on, I fucking cussed the guy out. I was like, I have been trying to get this answer from you for 2 hours. 2 hours. You have been incredibly rude. You may not have raised your voice, but you have been incredibly rude this entire time. You have wasted my time, and you have been a coward. You don't want to own the thing that you want to say. So that's where I lost my shit. Right, yeah. I'm sure they've seen plenty of trans people without even knowing it. Absolutely, Maddie. Absolutely. It's not worth it to have the debate I had last night the same way I did. But I wouldn't know that if I didn't have it. Now I would have that debate differently. So we are in the early days still, and I am refining. Oh. Absolutely, I think it's been worth it. I think it has definitely been worth it so far. With the Nazi, I can tell he was definitely shook about his understandings of the groups that he decides to hate. And he has come back and he has reaffirmed his position, but talking to him, I could tell that he was like, well, fuck, my definitions don't really make sense. So I know he's still thinking about that. I know for a fact that Super Jesus is still shook about gender because he still doesn't want to talk about it. He says he hasn't changed his mind on it, but he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and that means he's shook on it. These are things these people are still thinking about, and it has been less than a month. So, with those guys. I mean, wait, the bad boy has been a month now. And time limits? I am still figuring that one out, and that one is still a process, but I do believe we are moving on it. We are making Maddie here to hold me to account. Woo! I think what I need to do, to be fair of your time constraint criticism, Maddie, I think what I need to do is I need to write myself out like a time chart and be like, all right, at 30 minutes, do a gut check and see how you feel about these things. At an hour, do a gut check and see how you feel about these things. And if you are not making any progress on that, just gotta call it. You have to call it. Maddie, I don't expect you to be here for everything. I love that you're here for everything, but I don't expect to hold you to that standard. If the issue is that you want to be here for all of it, I very much appreciate that. You know, honestly, I can't keep doing it either. It's not good for my health. It's not good for me being organized in my life. But as you and I have already discussed, it's hard to give it up when it's building steam. Right. But if it's a marathon and you get more momentum going uphill if you push a little bit harder, then I might keep pushing a little bit harder while I'm on the uphill. And then when it levels out, I'll level out too. I know, I know, I know. I'm talking about like pace over the course of the marathon. So I might make my pace a little rougher over this section of the marathon for like this month, and then the next month maybe chill it out a little bit. Do an assessment. Yeah. Are you saying not to do it every day? I mean, I think that too will change with time. Sorry, Evil Alien Robot. Something I've wanted to ask them is if they have the same issue as men referring to things like ships and trucks as she. Yeah, I've raised that one with people. I've raised God with people because God doesn't have biology. They just go, it's different. It's a cop out. It's different. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I need to address, under which circumstances would you doubt the self-identification of a person? Okay. Doubting self-identification. Okay, I think the best way to do it is this. All I do is watch political streamers, so I'm fine with the late streams. And yeah, of course, as I was explaining earlier, I don't expect everybody to be here for everything. So like, I'm gonna do it when I'm able to do it, and I hope people can make it when they can make it. That's all. Maybe someday I will be able to do this and make enough money on it that it can be my profession, but for now, that's not where we're at. I would love to do this all day, every goddamn day. Okay. Do you have anyone that you take debate tactics from? I took my gender definition from Jovan Bradley. I think it's a very helpful one. I think what I need to make it more mine is I need a metaphor to help explain schema to people. That's what I think I need. And then debate tactics. On tactics, I would say like I take tactics from people in the form of what not to do. Because I spend most of my time listening to debates going, no, this isn't helping. This isn't helping. What you're doing is not helping. My debate philosophy, my debate tactics, I think it's very different than what I've seen anyone else do. Having slightly easier words will help. You know what, Maddie? I'll just try it. I will try it. I'll listen to you and I'll see how well it goes. Who do I listen to? I don't hate it. I just have a philosophy that I'm still trying out, but I'm willing to try out other things and see if they work. I listened to Jovan Bradley. I listened to Dean Withers and Parker. I don't know if I know Parker's last name. Parker Get a Job. I used to listen to Vosh back when he did debate. I listened to The Atheist Experience, Jimmy Snow, Matt Dillahunty. Yeah. I hear you, Maddie. I'll try it, for sure. I am not a Hassan fan. I have always thought Hassan acted like a piece of shit. So... Okay. Can I ask you why? How? I just don't like debate bros. Am I a debate bro, Maddie? Or does that define a specific thing? Not suggesting he's without his criticism. Can I ask why? How he acts like a piece of shit? I've just always like it's not a particular criticism. As I said, when I said what my issue was with him, it was that I see him as like acting like a piece of shit. Like, I don't think he is objectively a piece of shit. It's just the vibe that I get from him, and he puts me off. I think he's incredibly full of himself. His like stoner giggle, I can't. And then, like, of course, all of his Israel-Palestine talk rubs me absolutely the wrong way. And I get a very let them eat cake vibe from him about being wealthy. My Israel-Palestine take is simple. Israel is a state. Palestine is a territory within a state. People live in both of those places. A government operates over the entirety of both. And the government that operates over the entirety of both is cruel to the people that live within the territory. There are people in the territory that reacted in violence to, let's be honest, violence enacted upon them. And that just means there's two sides that are doing violence. Anytime there's violence, people enacting violence are responsible, unless they are in the moment defending themselves. But that doesn't mean they share equal culpability, because the side with power has the opportunity to change things. So the side with power is much more culpable. People who don't do anything are innocent people. And I will say sometimes fighting back is justified, but that doesn't mean that all actions are justified. I said it was simple, but I guess that didn't come out simple. I just feel like it is an inherent concept, but I know some people don't describe it that way. What's your Israel-Palestine take, evil alien robot? I don't think you are. I think. Oh, wait, what? Don't think I am what? Oh, I also think Israel is committing a genocide. Yes. And I think the American government talked about This may have been still on the campaign trail. I'm not sure if it happened while he was president, but talking about turning a genocide into valuable properties. Oh, you don't think I am a debate bro? Debate bros are ultimately grifters and will take any position to mostly maximize self-profiteering and aggrandizement. Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's a good way to put it. And like, I also don't care about like putting up a win afterwards. Like, this seems weird to me because a debate consists of a ton of points. How can you win a debate when there are just several things that you talked about? Oh, Maddie. Oh, stab in the heart. Somewhat authentic. Oh. Ah. Well, I'll do what I can. Okay, this is a categorization of karyotyping, genitalia, gonads, and hormones into... Yeah. One second. And I think I've decided that I just have to make my content offline. I can't stream it. It's just not realistic. There's always a performative aspect to streaming. I mean, I guess I have to accept that and just think all I can do is run from that. Put as much distance between me and it as possible. Hmm. This is how I'll put it. You at least stand by what you're saying and advocating. Damn right. Hell yeah. Whoop whoop. Here to make people think. And to close out my story from earlier, that's where I think I got in his head, because I got mad because he was being a coward and wasting my time and acting like I was the one who was being offensive. And when he finally admitted to it, I got mad at him. And I think the fact that I had been so pleasant that whole time and then just flipped the fuck out on him made him go, what the fuck did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? I must have done something wrong. That's what I took away from him coming back and talking about his shower thoughts. I think... I don't understand. Trolling's not fun. The best that the most trolly thing I can think of that I've done. No, I was about to say something that was not true. No, I have been absolutely trolly, but I will confess that when I was trolly, I was behaving childishly. I remember a friend of mine and I playing Left 4 Dead back in Left 4 Dead's waning years, as it was dying a sad death. My friend and I played some late night Left 4 Dead, and somehow neither team could keep a consistent team of 4, and it ended up being me and him versus a team. No, I think they had a consistent team of 4. It was like a 4-person girl squad, and I know they were a girl squad because they were sending me voice messages over Xbox, fucking bullying me for not being as good as them. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Okay, like, why are we being mean? Okay. But my friend and I were honestly getting our asses kicked, and we knew we were getting our asses kicked. And so in Left 4 Dead, at the beginning of every stage, like a match in Left 4 Dead is like you go through 3 to 5 different stages, and you play both sides. You play humans and then you play zombies on each of the stages. And at the beginning of a stage, you're in a safe house, and like the zombies eventually the door will open for you and allow the zombies to come in, but only the special zombies will spawn. Only those that are play by players. No, that's not true, because hordes will eventually spawn and run into the room to attack you. But eventually the door just opened, and we were like, you know what? Fuck it. We're not going anywhere. We can stall as long as we fucking want to. They wanna be mean to us. They wanna bully us for being bad players. Fine. We'll just suck, but we'll suck in here. And I think we sat in that room for 2 hours, and they kept trying to come through the door, and we just kept popping them. They kept sending voice messages that were bullying us. And at that point, it was just like a war of contrition. Like, we're not moving, and you can keep bullying. I don't know which of us is right anymore, but okay. Beyond that, worst thing I've done that's like trolling, and like I wouldn't even consider this as much of trolling, but my friend and I were playing Halo for hours, and we were still playing it, but we reached the point where we were just kind of exhausted by the whole thing, and we were like, I'm just not having fun, but I don't want to stop, and we're playing together. So we were playing a Halo match that had was Valhalla. It has like a single tree out in the middle of it, and we were on the same team. And so we just, during the middle of the match, while no one was looking at us for some reason, the two of us went out to the tree, and we just started running in circles around the tree. And people would come kill us, they'd run over us or whatever, and then we just run back out to the tree and start running in circles around the tree. And eventually, people from the other team joined us. And then it was just people on both teams running in a circle around this little tree out in the middle of a map during the middle of an online match. And eventually, both teams just stopped fighting entirely. I guess I've been doing this forever. Both teams stopped fighting entirely. They pulled their warthogs over and basically had a picnic out by the tree. Until such time as somebody got tired of it and started killing everyone again. But it lasted, I would say, a good long 10 minutes. It was a pleasant time. It was a long time ago. This was, what, 2010? Do you ever feel bad after proving someone wrong? Sometimes the defeat of someone conceding makes me question if the conversation was worth it, because now I feel really mean. When I prove someone wrong, I try, like, if they show that they are actually working on the concept and not still just fighting it for the sake of fighting it, if they show they're working on the concept, I do my best to provide them a place to land. And that's generally what my whole goal is I feel like people are afraid that there is nowhere to land. There's no safe place to move over. And so that's what I'm trying to provide. I try to show them, look, it's okay. You can be welcomed over here. It's all right. Okay. What? What was that? Okay. I think that's a solid definition of sex. Gender. Ugh. Evil alien robot, can I ask why you're asking when the Halo adventure was? I was just thinking back to how good those days were. Man, we used to have barn parties for like my birthdays and stuff. My house had like a big backyard that had a barn in the back from when the previous owner had horses, and we basically used the barn as an attic. And when I got older, it got to the point where me and my friends wanted to be rambunctious, loud teens and, you know, inflict pain on my parents whenever I had a big group of people over. So we, as a group of friends, decided, okay, let's just move it all out to the barn. We will make this basically a clubhouse. So we reorganized all of the attic shit in the barn, cleaned off all the cobwebs and shit, and we just turned it into like a giant LAN party space. We had people up in the loft of the barn. We had people down in like the main room of the barn. Then we had somebody in the tack room, or like 3 different Xboxes all hooked up together by cords that were like coming down from the loft and going into the tack room. And when we first cleared out that space, we had to kill a snake. I always tell that story with like all the furniture that was in the tack room had sheets over it and stuff like that. And I remember my friend he was standing on a chair to get higher up over by a couch, and there was a chair with a sheet over it on the couch, and he picked up the chair and tilted it forward to move it. And when he tilted the chair, he heard a plop as something hit the couch. And the way he described it to me, he was like, plop? Why was there a plop? A plop doesn't really make sense. And when it occurred to him that there shouldn't be a plop, he kind of jumped away from the couch, and sure enough, there was a really pissed off snake on the couch. And it wasn't a rattlesnake. I don't remember what kind of snake it was, but it was a really big motherfucker. Big snake. Oh, my YouTube chat isn't available. Hold on a second. Oh, somebody's been in here the whole time. Are you a real attorney? Illuminati, I don't know when you made your message. I'm sorry if I didn't see you if it's been a while. Illuminati, thank you. I am a real attorney, and I appreciate that some of my stuff is good. I've still got more content in the works. It has been my practice to do all of my... Where am I going? Where am I? What was I working on? It's working on a YouTube comment. There we go. I don't know if I'm even talking to anybody at this point, but I think I've decided I just can't. I used to do editing my videos and stuff live so that like I was recording every part of the project. But I just don't know if I can do that anymore, because if I'm going to be live, I'm going to be engaging with people. And it's really easy to, as I'm demonstrating right now with a single YouTube comment, it's easy for me to... No, there's nobody in YouTube chat? Well... Thanks, Maddie. So I missed a YouTube comment. When I started my YouTube stream, yeah. When I started my YouTube stream, I thought I set it to public, and then I grabbed my chat text box and moved it over, and I don't pay a lot of attention to the YouTube chat text box. But then I noticed that for some reason my stream wasn't public on YouTube, so I had to go switch it over again, but apparently my YouTube chat was still in private mode, so I missed a comment. Whoops. Missed engagement. Okay, where's the... There we go. There we go. Yeah, I guess I'm writing a thesis at this point. It is a concept inherent to every person about the sociocultural aspects related to the sexes, as those aspects are decided by their own culture. Before most people learn about characteristics above, they have to categorize people by their gender terms, i.e. man, woman, boy, girl. Before they have any knowledge about their biology. Which can perhaps best be seen as a bucket, as a pair of buckets each of us has in our own heads, labeled man and woman. We unarguably make assumptions about people, knowing nothing more than their sociocultural, than some of their sociocultural characteristics. This can perhaps best be seen as a pair of buckets each of us has in our own heads, labeled man and woman. We unarguably make assumptions about people, knowing nothing more than some of their sociocultural characteristics. Inarguably? Inarguably. Right? Yeah. Silly me. Silly me. People who are opposed to recognizing transgender people as the gender they identify themselves as may insist that once we learn their biological characteristics, we should use pronouns they associate with the sexes, but that doesn't change the fact, the objective fact, that this categorization, categorization exists prior to having that knowledge. So far, sex equals four to five specific biological characteristics. No, that's the three-hour debate. The one from like a week ago. And I'm taking this as an opportunity to refine my gender argument. So far, sex equals... Oh, actually, I need to go one step further with this explanation. because these buckets exist, because no one can determine for another person how they shape these buckets, and because these buckets exist even before the age of 5, when most people have no real concept of sex, it's typical that a person would put themselves in one of these buckets. Yeah, this is a response to a comment. But it was a comment that I thought worthy of me processing. It's not like I have to respond to this comment. It's like this person put thought into this comment, so I want to fearlessly engage with it for my own well-being. As I think there are definitely ways that, like, gender is a language barrier. That's it. That's clean and simple. If somebody disagrees that gender exists, it's just a language barrier. If they think that sex should take precedence to gender in what we call someone, then it becomes like a moral issue. And after today, I think I'm going to do any social media stuff, any content creation stuff. I'm just going to do it offline. Maybe I'll record it and then I can upload it if I feel the need to show like the learning process at some point, or if I need to substantiate my own learning from scratch. You know, because people are going to accuse, like, you don't actually believe this, or you're getting funded by somebody, and I just like to have the evidence of, like, no, I literally just did this by myself from the beginning, and I had to learn from nowhere. Okay. you wouldn't say that names are subjective merely because each person has a different one and a different... That's not a good example. You wouldn't say friendship doesn't exist merely because it is differently defined by each person. It objectively is a thing that exists independently within each person. You're not being funded by George Soros? No, I've always been so confused about the George Soros thing. Like, how much has ever been proven that he's paid anybody? Okay. An atypical self-assignment may overlap these buckets or be outside them, so it's not phantasma, this objectively exists. You wouldn't say friendship doesn't exist merely because it is differently defined by each person. It objectively is a thing that exists independently within each person. And it appears to be immutable. The person can't will it to change. I think it's just a Jewish... yeah, I mean, it is a Jewish conspiracy dog whistle. But, I mean, that would be true even if he was funding some activism. But I'm still just kind of curious, like, what even have y'all, like, found? So far, sex equals 4 to 5. Specific biological characteristics. Or categories. Characteristics. Gender. The above described. Mental buckets. I think this is easier to describe now that I've given a concrete visual for what gender is. You know an important point that I hadn't really thought about bringing up before? From the time you're 4 the time you're an adult, or by the time femininity, femininity, femininity. By the time people go from 4 to 20, their level of masculinity and femininity changes a lot. Maybe not a lot in every person, but amongst the people it changes a lot. But that doesn't change any person's gender identity, for the most part. I think this is easier to describe now that I've given a concrete visual for what gender is. These are descriptions of typical alignment of sociocultural traits with the buckets. In the same way, the buckets typically align with the sexes. You would say a male typically has certain masculine traits. And it is also true that a person can point to their buckets and say, a man typically has these masculine traits. That's why self-identification isn't the only viable concept for gender. Each concept of gender can have one or many, but at a minimum, across all schema, these individual buckets each person would believe the gender, at least for purposes of self-identification, to require self-identification characteristic. Otherwise, they wouldn't identify as it. Once people are filtered into the buckets by the internal required criteria, the people in the buckets can have any of the traits that are typical of either bucket. So in the same way that a male with feminine characteristics. Good night, Maddie. Thank you for being here. Hey, Maddie, real quick before you go, you say you can't stay up as late. Are you able to do more hours earlier? Like, if we both shifted our schedules earlier, would that be healthier for both of us? No, well, I know. I'm just wondering because I want to move my schedule. I want to do more earlier for my own benefit, and I was just wondering if that I would also get the benefit of having you on all the time. Like, not that I require you to be on all the time, but I just like having you here. Just wondering if I would have the benefit of still having you through a lot of that if it was just moved earlier. Thank you. And thank you for understanding my constant neurodivergent need to over-explain everything. Okay, good night. Rest well. Hope you get your rest back on track, and I will do the same. I'll try not to be on... God, it's already past 1 o'clock. I've just been doing this fucking YouTube comment. Jeez. This is why I need to start doing all of this offline. We need to be more productive with our time when I'm live. This isn't doing it anymore. All right, good night. I just need to copy paste this whole thing into my own notes so that like I can rely on this in the future. I think is a good idea. Okay, so do I have specific questions to address now? Under which circumstances would you doubt self-identification of a person? So, to some of your points, I wouldn't doubt that for the same reason that I wouldn't doubt someone who said, oh, no, my legal name is John. I go by Derek. Under what circumstances would you doubt someone saying, I go by Derek? So I guess it's not no circumstances. Under very limited circumstances. As I have very little occasion doubt an aspect. I wouldn't doubt that in general, for the same reason that I wouldn't doubt someone who said, oh no, my legal name is John, I go by Derek. Under what circumstances would you doubt someone saying, I go by Derek? This might matter in, say, a legal context where someone sent a text to John with regard to a criminal conspiracy. If Derek offers that he doesn't even go by John, he better be able to prove that he is consistent in denying association with that name. In that same way, do you think a dual political party is bad? What do you mean by a dual political party? A political party with two what? In that same way, someone might want to prove that they identify as a woman and with she, her pronouns to show that a text using he, him pronouns are less likely to be about them. Circumstances like these would be an appropriate occasion to have maybe not doubt, but reasonable skepticism that is then readily resolved in their favor if the evidence supports their self-identification claim. Over-explaining. The American political party system. So a dual political system, a dual party political system. The American political party system. I'm from Brazil, and I wanted to hear your opinion. A two-party system is infinitely better than a one-party system, but a two-party system is worse than something like a ranked choice voting system that allows for a broader breadth of parties, or a parliamentary system that allows for more parties. Limiting the way in which you can be represented is not great. But keep in mind that the objective thing we're proving here isn't whether they are objectively a man or a woman from objective criteria, from objective universal criteria, we are proving wrong emphasis there. We are proving whether they are objectively, whether they objectively identify as a man or woman, based on their schema, the buckets. I think that Tiago, what do you think about a dual? Yeah, what do you think about it? Just gonna come in and ask our opinion and not share your own? We're here to share ideas. We're here to share ideas. Share. Wow, that's been cut off that whole time. Okay, what else we got here? If you would, under no circumstances, ever contradict the self-identified gender of a person, my point still stands. I tried to show that the concept of gender that the host is using was vanishing into thin air because it only relied on a tautology. It's a valid argument even though it might not apply with other definitions of gender. Huh? Furthermore, you are using a cheap cop-out to evade an argument saying that there are no words to how we relate to trans people. Then how can you know if your ideas in relation to them are valid? I suspect the lack of words and your linguistic problems are a strong indicator for the fact that your concept of definition lacks clarity and coherence. I know that my response above is not the concept you were referring to, but I would like an explanation if this explanation too would if this criticism would still apply as to how it lacks clarity or coherence. Seems to me it is universally applicable, universally cleanly applicable. So I find it hard to see how it would be incoherent. Furthermore, I'm not confused about the distinction between sex and gender, and the existence of intersex persons poses no challenge to my definition at all. You might not agree with my definition, which you cannot even know, but that doesn't make me confused. And of course, I would not call justice a phantasma because it has a coherent concept with a clear definition. Okay. It is at least equally coherent with. I guess Tiago just bailed without explaining anything further about the American political party system. It is equally coherent with justice. The problem with witchcraft and others baseless speculations is they cannot show to have coherent definitions and no function in reality, or like in the case of the host gender definition, it was a tautology, which means it has no meaning and doesn't explain anything. Not really a tautology. I don't think that the existence of trans persons shows limitations of linguistics in any way. Maybe you could give me an example or clarification. Maybe I just don't understand. Where is the point that I wanted to say about? Where's the part where he says if you take it away? Is that in the previous argument? You're correct that I wouldn't dispute that, because while I have my own schema, they have theirs, and neither one of us is correct. Is objectively correct as to a universal truth claim. It is an aspect of their identity. So I have very little basis to say, no, that's not who you actually are. Oh, got no music going. I would have about as much basis to say about someone they had explained to me to be their friend. No, or no, that person isn't your friend. or to say something like, no, you don't go by Derek. You are Christopher. Or even, no, I won't call you Katya. Katya is a woman's name. All of that sounds ridiculous. And you may think we should call someone a man or a woman based on sexual characteristics. But if I'm referring to their gender, it would be just as ridiculous of me to tell them they're wrong. So in contrast to this tautological woman is whoever says that she is a woman, a sensible way to define a woman's biological sex because it is based on an objective criterion. Instead of showing that gender exists, the host shows that the whole concept is a phantasma. I won't argue with you that you can't refer to someone by their sex. You are able to refer to anyone based on whatever you choose. But now we are talking about two separate issues. Referring to someone by their gender is not referring to something that doesn't objectively exist. It does exist. And I hope we can get on the same page that these two things are both real things. Once we get to which should we use for reference, we are talking about a moral or utility argument. This is probably too long for a YouTube comment. I don't know. The utility is clear. The utility, I would argue, is clear. On one side, the benefit is comfort with familiar uses of language and what else? On the other, you respect individuals. You do not cause them harm by denying identities, and you reduce negative health outcomes that are based on what happens to human beings when you deny them identities. Positive contribution. Avoidance of negative contribution. Avoidance of negative health contribution. Seems to me, based on those weights, that referring to someone by their sex, it's not only weird, because you're boiling people down to their junk instead of their identity. But that it also makes you morally culpable for harm to these people. So can do that. I just think you shouldn't. Where is the thing about, like, if the frickin', what's the word? Social construct went away. Tim tried to show that by asking him how much he would define a masculine who identifies as such, because it makes all cultural stereotyping obsolete. If a masculine woman can just be a woman, then self-identification is the decisive factor, then it becomes totally arbitrary, rendering his whole elaborate concept obsolete, because it simply doesn't matter what you or your culture thinks. Let's say I am a biological male who checks all the cultural male criterion. Something that vanishes, like, oh, there it is. Something that vanishes like other imaginary concepts like witchcraft if you examine it. No, is that not it? I think that's good enough. Okay. Let's get a... What's the word I'm looking for? Proofread on this. See what comments we get. Please prove the following typographical errors and consider any areas the response may be weak. Don't critique for structure. Oh, no, stop. What? I didn't say to delete it. Ugh, please proofread for typographical errors and assess weaknesses in the argument. Do not critique for structure. Go for it. Nope, not that one. There we go. Proofreading. Carry up typing. The friendship analogy is weaker than presented. Friendship is relational and externally verifiable to some degree. Gender identity, as you describe it, is entirely internal and self-reported. An opponent could say, I can observe whether two people act like friends. I cannot observe your internal buckets. I disagree with that, actually. I can't observe the qualities that another person claims makes them friends with another person. I can observe how they act with that person in the same way that I can observe how a person outwardly expresses their gender. The Derek comparison may miss the opponent's point. They likely viewed sex-based pronouns as factual descriptions, not preferences like names. To them, you're not comparing Derek versus John. You're comparing someone insisting you call them 6 feet tall when they're 5'4". I address that later, though. You need to establish first that pronouns track gender rather than sex before this analogy lands. Immutable is asserted without defense. Detransitioners exist. Some people's sense of gender shifts. We need to qualify this. Qualifying it is a good idea. Qualifying it is a good idea. The harm calculus at the end is one-sided. Oh, right. I need to request that they provide the boiling people down to their junk line is rhetorically sharp, but risks strawmanning. They'd say noting sex is no more reductive than noting any other fact about someone, except that the other fact is their identity. Whose schema governs? You say neither person's schema is objectively correct, but then argue we should defer to self-identification anyway. Right, it's a normative claim. Right, yeah, self-identification should have been explicitly defended. You've just described that schemas exist. Okay. Let me get your thoughts on my immediate thoughts on your critiques. 1. Friendship. This seems to me to work in exactly the same way. I can't know how they define friendship internally. I can only see how they act with people they call friends. And I can't decide they aren't friends, even by my own definitions. Other than through my own lens, which is true for everyone. And no one questions the idea that just because those two people don't fit my definition of friends, that they may not be friends by the nature of their own definitions. For gender, I don't know their schema. I can see how they outwardly express gender. Outwardly. And I and my schema have no bearing. Derek, I believe at the time I'm describing this, I merely show that these work the same way, not that there is a normative argument here. I address the normative argument later. I do need to qualify the immutability. Commonly reported to be experienced as an immutable heuristic. Harm calculus. I forgot to include, I think, an invitation to fill in the other side of the scale because I don't see it. Boiling people down to their junk. True. But at that point, I'm happy to move to a normative discussion. Whose schema? Yeah, it's normative. Where I describe it as based on morality or utility and provide an unfinished weighting of the benefits that I need to add that invitation to. Just putting in the work of working through my own arguments. I think this is a healthy thing that people need to do. Counter is stronger than I initially gave credit for. You're right that I don't verify someone's internal definition of friendship. I just observe behavior they label as friendship. The disanalogy an opponent might still press. Friendship typically involves mutual recognition. Well, two people can disagree on whether they're friends. Gender identity is unilateral. They might say society also has a stake in gender categories in ways it doesn't with private friendships. Not fatal, but anticipated. To Derek Fair, if you're explicitly separating descriptive from normative, the critique is premature at that stage. Just make sure the transition to normative is clear so it doesn't read as if you think the descriptive point also settles it. Immutable, yes, that qualification is honest and defensible. Harm calculus. The invitation is good rhetorically. Be prepared. They'll likely raise youth medical interventions, competitive sports, and women's spaces. Having even a sentence acknowledging these are contested and you're open to discussing them separately prevents looking evasive. Boiling down, agreed, fine to concede and move on. Was 5 again? Yeah. Whose schema? You've identified the gap, the invitation plus the utility morality framing should close it. Okay. 1. Gender identity is unilateral. Simple response. Never known two people to disagree about whether they are friends. And number 4. Simple response. None of those inherently have to do with what we call someone. What we do about those issues after we resolve the identification issue is a different problem. I'm happy to discuss outside of the identification context. Oh, no, stop. Why? I numbered things the way I meant to. Don't do that. Come on, man. Don't be like that. Okay, cool. Ready to make a couple edits and then post that. What an exciting thing to do. Okay, what were the... Here we go. Typographical errors. Switch over to this one. So we can analyze them. Karyotyping. Karyop typing. There we go. It was highlighting it for me. The typical 2 seconds. No, I'd say the typical 2 sexes. It's typical that a person I don't know where it says that. There it is. It's typical that a person would subconsciously put themselves in one of these buckets. So in the way that a male with feminine characteristics couldn't meet the scientific definition of a male, a man with feminine characteristics couldn't meet the schematic definition of a man. Oh, yeah. No. Wait. Yeah, this is reversed. Yeah. That would have sucked. I would have made a mess of an argument. Where is this? Where is this? It's in the section on masculinity. Is it? Where is... man, where is this? So in the way that a male with feminine characteristics would still meet the scientific definition of a male, a man with feminine characteristics would still meet the schematic definition of a man. You are correct, that wouldn't dispute that. I wouldn't, yeah. What? Where'd it go? Ah, you are correct that I wouldn't dispute that. I hope this More thorough response is helpful. Okay. Okay, and then immutable. Immutable. I can't find where I say immutable. Where do I use immutable? Okay, people place themselves in buckets. Oh, I said that even lighter than I thought I did. Is commonly reported to be experienced as an immutable characteristic. Okay. Way too long of a response, but I did it. Okay, well, that's it. Name, age, and pronouns, please. Ah. Maybe I'll do like 30 minutes of video work offline, but I need to go offline. I should wait until tomorrow to do some work on videos. Yeah, I should get some rest is what I should do. Especially because I need to take my dog to the vet in the morning, and I just remembered that. Okay. Well, if I got anybody in stream right now, and I don't think I do, have a good night. I'm Know Nothing attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And that's what we're here to do. I'm here to learn with you, and I hope you can learn by joining me. And as always, I'm proud of you. I don't need to know you personally for that to be real. It's true, and you deserve to hear it. Because life is hard. It's always been hard, and it always will be hard. Having hard time with my sign-offs lately. The way you approach each and every single day, the way you do, is remarkable. So stay remarkable, and I'll see you next time. See you tomorrow.